Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source, quality, affordable land, this time in the state of Colorado. Yes, people, we are back in the Rocky Mountain State this week with another new property that I think you guys are really going to respond to. As you can see from the headline here, this one's a residential lot already outfitted with underground utilities. Additionally, it sits at the base of the Saguache Mountains pictured here in this photograph. What is not mentioned in the headline is the fact that this property is right outside the quaint, artsy town of Crestone, Colorado, and one of the many entrances to the Rio Grande National Forest. Now, it should be stated here at the outset, guys, that this property is part of an HOA, meaning that there are rules, there are dues. Nothing, however, that I believe is too ridiculous, number one. And number two, nothing that is not worth the trade-off for owning some fantastic property out here in this really, really picturesque region. So, with that said, let's get to the details. This is reference number SGCO-1210, located as noted in Saguache County down here in the south central portion of the state, more specifically in the Baca Grande Grants subdivision. This property is 1.63, a scooch under 2 acres, and as you saw up top, it is priced at $13,000. With all that said, let's bring this one up on a map. Do as we always do. Click on any one of these GPS coordinates here on all of our listing pages, and the property shall appear on the Google Maps. So this square-shaped state right here is Colorado. If you notice the pin down here, this is where the subject property is, roughly about 3.5 hours drive time south of Denver, about 3 hours south-southwest of Colorado Springs, and about 2.5 hours north of some of the best skiing in America in northern New Mexico's Taos Ski Valley. If we get in close to the property and we want to talk about what towns are actually within reasonable driving distance, we'll mention the town of Saguache over here, the town of Moffett over here, and the town of Crestone over here. If we are talking, however, about big box stores, if we want access to those, universities, medical centers, just towns that have basically every fast food restaurant in America, you are either going to have to drive about 40 minutes north into Salida over here, or about 40 minutes south into Alamosa down here. The property is roughly equidistant from both those towns, and that is where you would find some of that. Now, if you're unfamiliar, guys, we of course have photos of the nearby towns, such as Alamosa. I will save you the tour through the gallery and simply say that most notably in this town, we have the hospital out here, and we have the Walmart. I always have to shill for Walmart because everybody wants to know where the nearest Walmart is. They've got a Walmart. They've got a Tractor Supply store out here. Where's it at? There it is, Tractor Supply. So, of course, if you're doing bulk grocery supply runs, if you are doing runs for, let's say, building supplies, you're buying property out here to build, you're probably going into one of these two towns to pick up larger amounts of hardware, lumber, things like that, if you need that, okay? Additionally, of course, there's plenty of things to do down here in Alamosa, Colorado. Now, I just want to direct your attention back to the map, guys. Aside from nearby towns, we also like to point out things to do out here in these locations. Of course, it's Colorado. Throw a rock and you're going to hit some national park, some forest, some amazing thing to see or do. By this property, we have the Great Sand Dunes National Park down here. Of course, in the photo gallery, we also have pictures of that. This, of course, is a beautiful region out here where you could take advantage of the sand dunes, go sand sledding, sand skiing, whatever people do in sand exactly. But these are the highest, I think this is the claim to fame, these are the highest sand dunes in North America, something like that. Anyway, we've got photos, so if you're unfamiliar with that, you can look at those. It should also be noted, guys, that the property is also in very close proximity to Zapata Falls, which shows up on the map down around here. Of course, we've also got photos of Zapata Falls. This, of course, is an area not only known for its waterfalls, but also for campgrounds, trails, hiking, picnicking, so on and so forth. You're really here at the base of the National Forest out here, Rio Grande National Forest. So you can, as you can imagine, all of that is just right here within Zapata National Falls, the campgrounds, the falls themselves, etc. And of course, once more, guys, we like to point out the giant splotches of green on the map, which in this case are the Rio Grande National Forest. Of course, over 1 million acres of land out here that you can camp. You can, hang on, more photos of these guys. That you can camp, that you can go on trails, picnics, hikes, so on and so forth, and hunting elk, mule deer, wild turkey, and anything with 4 legs. Pretty much out here you can hunt. Etc. But nonetheless, this is a beautiful, picturesque region, including the Sangre de Cristo Wilderness area, all basically within the backyard of the subject property, which is why we have all these photos, which is why we like to show you guys all of these things. Now, as noted, guys, before I get to the specific property, Also want to make you aware of these towns that I mentioned, such as Saguache, such as Crestone. We have photos of them as well. As Crestone is the closer town, I'm just going to direct your attention down here to some of the photos of this one. Of course, grocery store just right outside where the subject property is located here in Crestone. Additionally, there is a hardware store out here. I was talking about big box stores as far as being able to get lumber, building supplies, things like that if you start to build on the land. There is one fairly close by, roughly about 5 minutes away. Not sure how much they will have available to you, but they are out there. Of course, there's banking in this small town. There's post offices in this small town. It is also kind of a quaint little artsy town, as I think I mentioned earlier. Elephant Cloud Market. This is a, I don't think, what is it? It's a vegan grocery store, or it's a, well, it's a healthy grocery store. We'll just put it that way. I forget exactly what kind of grocery store it is. Additionally, there is a Zen center out here, as well as Buddhist shrines, Hindu shrines in this area. Apparently, there is great spiritual significance to this specific region of Colorado where this property is located. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about this, guys. So everything I just talked about is basically within, a stone's throw of this region right here. So the property is located within the Baca Grande subdivision. Baca Grande is, as I mentioned, an HOA, and they're one of these HOAs that actually has numerous subdivisions. So they have chalets, 1, 2, and 3. They have a mobile homes subdivision. This subdivision, however, is Baca Grande Grants, and the specific property sits right here along West Badger Road. Now, just one thing I want to point out to you. The entrance to this subdivision over here, if you zoom in on the map, you will see all the things that are sort of available within this area. They have a park out here. They have a couple parks, actually. They have a tennis court in this region. I am told, or so it says on their website, they have a golf course out here. Both myself and the photographer had a little difficulty finding the golf course, but supposedly it exists. More importantly, however, emergency services just basically right around the corner. The Baca Grande Fire Department is out here as well. And of course, there are some restaurants in this area, some bed and breakfasts, things like that. It's a pretty quaint little town, all right? Anyway, with all that said, let me just direct your attention, guys, to the actual photos of the property. All right, so we're entering Baca Grande right here. This is what greets you out here, both this sign greeting you into the community, as well as mentioned, the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, which sit here really just right throughout the community. As you can see, paved roads as you enter, and as we go through here to the subject property, very well-maintained roads here along West Badger Road. Okay, these are well-maintained dirt gravel roads, and as you can imagine, this is part of what the HOA does, is they maintain the area, the roads, as well as property values. We'll get back to that in just a second. Underground utilities throughout Baca Grande Grants. This is one of these areas where they want to, essentially maintain sort of the beauty of the region, and because of that, they don't want power lines. They don't want, overhead utilities. So everything is underground out here. This is one of the utility boxes closest to the subject property. Anyway, it should be noted, guys, property boundary marker. This is actually lot 1329. The one has kind of fallen off the marker, but anyway, this is a property marker out here. It's not necessarily a boundary marker. Photographer did not find stakes out here in the ground. One would assume they exist in large communities like this. They usually do. He, however, could not find them, so I just want to make you aware of that. That being said, this is kind of an overgrown lot a little bit. Anyway, as we go through these, guys, you'll get an excellent sense of exactly how pretty, how picturesque this region is. There are a handful of photos here from the ground which give you a sense that we're going to have to do some brush clearing before we start building. Nonetheless, the HOA, I'm sure, can recommend some companies out there that do that. Of course, most notable about the property are the views here of the nearby Sangre de Cristos, which are very close, just really right down the street from the property. These, of course, are to the east of the land, so sunrise is going to be over the mountains here, etc. And as we like to point out in these photo galleries, just some of the nearby developed home sites that exist out here. Kind of get a little bit of a sense of the fact that this is a pretty well-developed region. But, hang on. There we go. This is the neighbor's house. This is what one of the nearby developed home sites looks like. This is kind of, I'm not entirely certain what this aesthetic is, log cabin type home. This one also very close by, just on the neighboring lot. This one very different than the previous house that we looked at. And this third one, different still than both of those. Nonetheless, these are some pretty nice homes out here that are in this area. And that all has to do with the HOA, which is why I'm pointing them out to you here in the video. As noted, guys, as always, we have down here at the bottom of the photo gallery drone images of where exactly the property is located, the exact size, shape, location, footprint of the property. I neglected to mention it earlier, but also in the gallery here we have the plat maps of the region. So as you can see that we're not making up these random geometric shapes. This is in fact what the property looks like. There will be a drone video down here at the bottom of the page which can help you better learn the terrain, the surroundings of this particular region. And just before we go, I do want to point out the plat map here in the gallery, just so you know I'm not making that up. Now, let's talk about the HOA, because of course this is what most of you are going to be concerned with when it comes to building, when it comes to dues, when it comes to what you can and cannot do out here. So we got a couple bullet points here within the property-specific notes that I want to bring your attention to. The first one, of course, is just the introduction of the fact that there is a POA out here, the Baca Grande Property Owners Association. They have the grants. They also have the other subdivisions that I mentioned. This is a community that consists of 3,800 parcels spread out over roughly 50,000 acres. That's what I've extrapolated from their website. As noted, guys, they got a golf course, a tennis court, stables. They've got multiple parks, fully staffed emergency services. The one that I forgot to mention, however, is Greenbelt. They've got miles and miles of Greenbelt out here. So perfect areas, of course, to go horse riding, to go just general trails, things like that. Now, if you click this link right here, it's going to take you to their website. Theoretically, you can read and learn more here on their website. I'd point you to the document center if you really want to dig into some things. That being said, this is one of these kind of HOA websites where they don't go into a lot of detail, and I suspect if you do want answers to your questions, it's going to be better to reach out to them directly. Okay. Now, let's just go through this a little bit more here. So this Baca Grande Property Owners Association, they do have covenants and restrictions. And these are what we like to term reasonable good neighbor restrictions. If you click this link, it'll bring up a copy of the covenants and restrictions that govern this region. You can read through these. Mostly, when we talk about reasonable good neighbor restrictions, what we mean is that essentially how you dispose of trash, don't park 20 broke down vehicles on your property. Things like that are enumerated here. Things that the average person probably doesn't want to do anyway. Things like you can't have a business on the property, you can't mine on the property. Okay, all that seems like the kind of thing that most people can easily agree to. No noxious, offensive, or illegal activities, so on and so forth, okay? So all of that pretty easy to take in. I'll let you guys review that document on your own time, but it's nothing that I think many of you are going to object to. The thing that most people do object to is when you talk about these sort of architectural control committees. So we talk about this here. Baca Grande Grants has an architectural control committee. And this is the kind of thing where, hey, if I want to build on the property, you have to get your building plans approved. Now, this is a benefit to you, the buyer, particularly if you're worried about real estate values. You're buying this property from us for $13,000. You want to make sure that it appreciates over time. It's in a beautiful region. You want to make sure that that region maintains its beauty and that you don't have some neighbor who shows up and parks a broken down school bus on their property and nobody can do anything about it. So in short, these architectural control committees generally tend to keep the riffraff out, we'll say, number one. Number two, they help maintain property values in the region by making sure that whatever gets built out there is fairly nice, fairly presentable home site. And of course, number three, that everything's up to code with various Colorado building standards. Now, I would love to tell you that if you went to this website, you would find more about the Architectural Control Committee and what they require and what they do and what they look for and just basic stipulations about building. They, however, don't go into a lot of detail on this website. If you go to Documentation Center, there are some documents about environmental and architectural control down here. These, however, are mostly minutes from a meeting, so nothing terribly detailed or nothing that's going to inform you as a potential buyer. So what I would recommend is what we recommend all the time is if you do have questions about, hey, I'm looking to build and do X, Y, Z with the land, it is always best to reach out to these entities directly. We, of course, have provided their phone number here as well as under the county contacts at the bottom of this page. Now, just very quickly, let me say this. We have here general building guidelines. These are some of the things enumerated in the covenants or restrictions. These are some of the things we could take away simply from reading that document, that attachment that we have right there. So first off, of course, these properties are built for residential use. They're designed for residential use, not for recreational. So no modular homes modular homes are acceptable. Mobile homes and RVs are not. Now, there's always exceptions made when you're building the permanent structure. You need something to live out of. Of course, in those occasions, those things are allowed. But as far as having that as a permanent dwelling, a permanent domicile, quote unquote, that's something that the Architectural Control Committee will not allow. Additionally, minimum square footage on homes out here, 900 square feet minimum. Additionally, time limit to build is 18 months. once you break ground on the property. Once your building plans have been approved and you break ground, you've got 18 months. And for some of you, that may sound like an onerous restriction, but keep in mind they want to make sure that you don't have some half-built eyesore in the middle of the community. They want to make sure that construction is, quote, diligently prosecuted. Diligently prosecuted. That is the term that attorneys like to use when they speak for these communities. I will have you guys know, with this Architectural Control Committee, one of the reasons that I showed you these photos down here at the gallery of the various homes out here, and actually you kind of get a little bit of a sense of it in these photos, particularly this dome-shaped house out here. My suspicion when I see things like that, when I see this kind of diverse, let's say, diverse architecture between these three homes, between this one and this one and this one, my supposition is that the Architectural Control Committee is probably pretty laid back. The little bit of reading that you're able to do of it on their website is that they're volunteer residents who reside within the community that make up this committee. And as you can see, this house is blue, the other houses are brown, right? So it says to me that this is not an organization that's picking out your paint swatches so much as they just want to make sure to, as I said earlier, keep the riffraff out. Make sure that you're not building an eyesore on the land, etc. And after that, whatever you want to do, you can probably do out here. Speaking of due, annual dues in this region are $339. We'll round up and say $350 annually because what an odd number $339 is. Of course, that can be paid all at once or in installments throughout the year, so nothing too ridiculous. Now, finally, guys, I do want to direct your attention, as we mentioned, the underground utilities are already present in this region, but let's talk about water sources. So if you're going to be building out here, you're going to be drilling a well. If we go to satellite view and we look at this community, and let me pull back here a little bit. There we go. All right. So the property is located right here. As you can see, there's a number of homeowners in this region. People have built all in very close proximity to the subject property. Let's see here. This one is probably that sort of log cabin home that we were looking at earlier. I know it's not a log cabin, but I don't know what it's called. This one is probably that blue house we were looking at. This one is probably that smaller house that we were looking at. Okay. These are all in fairly close proximity to the property, and that should immediately suggest to you that, number one, the water table is accessible. Hello. What was that? The water table is accessible, number one, and number two, that it should be fairly affordable to tie into, to drill a well out here. But let's actually go to this website right here, the Colorado Division of Water Resources. This, of course, is the entity, the government entity in Colorado you're going to talk to about well rights, about water rights, about well permits, things like that. So if you click on this link, it will take you to their website. And if you come here to Well Permit Map Viewer, click on this. It's going to bring up a map of the entire state of Colorado. And the map comes up. So this right here is Saguache County. If we zoom in on Saguache down here, we are going to bring up this area. This is Baca Grande. You can see it pretty well drawn up here on the map. And this right here is, there we go, Badger Road. So this right here is where the subject property is located. If we zoom in on the map, if we go to well application and final permit, click on all these, you're going to see a bunch of green dots appear on the map. And these green dots are other wells that have been drilled within the region. So as noted, properties right here on Badger. Let's look at the closest home sites. This one, if we click on this, the well depth is 100 feet. This one right here, well depth 102. This one, 142. This is probably the blue house, I think. This is the log cabin house. This is that smaller house, 100. So all of these fairly accessible, fairly affordable drill depth on getting a well out here, which is probably why you see so many home sites in this area. You also see some blue on the map, so that usually suggests that water's pretty accessible. Additionally, the nearby creeks and falls usually kind of indicate that as well. But if we pull back a little bit, all these green dots indicate that there are a number of home sites out here with all of them using wells. All of them probably, didn't have much difficulty tapping into that. As always, of course, guys, we recommend that if you are going to drill one of these, you want to do some more research. That website's an excellent resource, as well as talking to well drillers in the region. I suspect also the HOA will have some good insights into this. So if you are looking at this property, reaching out to the HOA at the phone number that we recommended earlier, or just going to their website, shooting them an email, you probably get some good answers on that. Anyway, people, if you are interested in purchasing this property, you should know that we closed on this with Alpine Title, or Alpine Title, however it's pronounced. Alpine Title Company. So we did get title insurance on this, which means we will be providing you with a warranty deed. In order to begin that process, just come up here, click the Buy Now button. It will take you to this secure checkout where we ask for a $500 non-refundable, guys, let me say it again, non-refundable earnest money deposit. That $500, of course, kicks off the process. We do not anticipate you giving us $13,000 directly. We would prefer to have you close through a title company on this. That's what we recommend, okay? So the way that we initiate that process is with $500. You put that down, give us some basic information, legal name for deed, or in this case, the contract, tax address, agree to the terms of service, and on the very next page, you can enter that $500 deposit. Again, non-refundable, so please don't initiate the transaction unless you know that you're certain about buying the property. Keep in mind also there is no financing on this, so you will be asked to provide the full amount at close of escrow. All right? Anyway, now in case I went too fast, guys, through all of that, we have a very helpful page on our website. It's called Buying From Us, how it works. Come down here and it'll talk more about this specific process. If you're putting down more than $10,000, which in this case, this $13,000 property, you would be. The way that it works is you place the earnest money deposit. We're going to draft a contract. You sign it, we sign it, we'll submit it to title company, and they will do the rest. There's a couple things at play here, guys. Number one is I don't anticipate the average buyer can charge $13,000 on a credit card or would want to, number one. Number two, for a variety of reasons, it benefits you, the buyer, not only with peace of mind, not only knowing that there's a third-party intermediary that you're giving your money to, but it also benefits you to get title insurance on the property, particularly if you're going to be building out here on the land. So these are the benefits of title and escrow. If you want to see what the contract looks like that you'd be asked to sign, just click this link right here. It'll take you to a generic version of one of our standard contracts. One page for signatures. Again, if you got a lawyer in the family, let them look at it, be our guest. And additionally, guys, if you have more questions about the title escrow process, if I'm going too fast, if you haven't done this before, got a very helpful page on our website, Title Escrow Frequently Asked Questions, which if you click, will bring up every conceivable question every human has ever asked us or will ask us about the title and escrow process. I promise. Anyway, it can be very informative and will help kind of walk you through that if you are questioning which way you do want to close on this property. Anyway, guys, with all that said, do really like this one out here just very close to Saguache Crestone Mountains out here by the National Forest, Zapata Falls. A lot to do, a lot to see, and just a really beautiful, picturesque region of Colorado. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I was very surprised when the photographer sent back the photos from this area as to exactly how lovely this is out here, and I believe that you will agree. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions, shoot us an email, support@hemingwayland.com. Leave a comment here on YouTube, or give us a call, 702-919-7170. As always, thankful for your attention span. Thanks for watching, guys.